Hey, it's Mark Lanier with your video thought for the day. Today and this week, in a sense, are a special request. I got an email from a very dear buddy of mine who said, hey, if you could go back in time, what would you tell your younger self about prayer? I thought, what a great theme for the whole week. The idea of being able to go back in time and talk to yourself about not just prayer, but so many other things of life. And so that's what I'm going to do this week. And I'll start today with prayer. Now, I love time travel shows, Doctor Who and all of those time travel shows. So in my brain, I've climbed in that time machine. I've gone back to Mark Lanier. Maybe I was the age of our daughter, Sarah, who's a senior in college. I don't know, but somewhere around there. What would I tell myself about prayer? Well, there are about 3 things that I can think of that rise to the top of what I'd want to say. The first one is to pray the Lord's Prayer. Now, some people grow up in a tradition where that's done all the time. I grew up in a tradition where we did not say the Lord's Prayer routinely. But when I studied church history, I learned that the early church, I'm talking about the church within the first 100 years of its existence, would say the Lord's Prayer 3 times a day. Individuals would. And I started as an older person trying to incorporate the Lord's Prayer into my prayer life. And I've found that it really enriches it, especially if I don't always simply pray it in a ritual fashion. Not simply, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Don't just rattle it off. But how about instead, if you try to think of each phrase and clause, what it means, and say what it means to you. Some days it's something different than it'll be other days. Sometimes I've tried to just say it to myself in Greek, to force myself to think through the Greek words and the full range of meaning of some of those Greek words. But that'd be the first thing I'd say, is pay attention and say the Lord's Prayer often. Second thing I'd say is I'd teach myself that prayer, in its best form, prayer teaches us and aligns us with the will of God. And it's there in the Lord's Prayer. We pray, thy will be done. But prayer is really about us seeking and finding and expressing God's will. Because in a sense, we're God's viceroys here on earth. We're his hands and his mouth. And so what we try to do is find what his will is in our lives and others and pray that that'll happen. Jesus even told his apostles that the harvest was plenty, but the laborers were few, and pray for God to increase the laborers in the fields, even though that was clearly God's will. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing I'd teach myself or tell myself is that prayer is the solution to worry, because prayer takes you to the throne of God. And if God's got it under his control, why me worry, as the old magazine character would say? Well, there's no reason to worry. God's got it under control. So with those 3 things, pay attention to the Lord's Prayer and prayer to align yourself with the will of God and know that God's got it under control. So give him your worries. With that, I'd be through talking to myself, at least on those points. I'll give you more tomorrow, but that's your video thought for the day.